Welcome back to our channel. In this video, you will find out how Islam began, how a man rose from orphanhood to prophethood, how revelations echoed through caves and across continents. This is not just the story of a religion. It is the story of how light rose from darkness and how one man's message reshaped the world. Long before Islam, Arabia was a land of extremes, burning days, frozen nights, and endless sand. Tribes wandered from oasis to oasis, bound by loyalty and blood. In the heart of the desert stood Mecca, a thriving trade city, home to the sacred Kaaba. But inside that shrine were over 300 idols, gods of stone, and worshipped by every tribe. The people were proud, poetic, and fierce. Yet their world was fractured, endless feuds, greed, injustice. Girls were sometimes buried alive at birth. The poor went hungry. The powerful ruled without mercy. And among the chaos, there were those who still believed in one unseen God, the God of Abraham, and they were few. But Arabia was waiting for a voice. Then, in the year 570, in the city of Mecca, a child was born. His name, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. He was orphan young, raised first by his grandfather, then by his uncle. He grew up honest and gentle. The people called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy. As a young man, he worked as a merchant for a noble widow named Khadijah. She saw in him what others did not: truth, humility, and strength. They married, and together built a life of peace and respect. But in the silence of the night, Muhammad would often withdraw to a cave called Hira, outside Mecca, to think, to pray, to search for truth. He could feel it. Something greater than idols was calling. And one night, that call answered. It was a night like no other. In the darkness of Hira, Muhammad sat in solitude, when suddenly, the silence broke. A presence filled the cave. A voice, commanding, mighty, spoke a single word: read. Startled, Muhammad replied, "I cannot read." The voice came again. Read, in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most generous. It was the angel Gabriel, delivering the first words of what would become the Quran. Terrified, Muhammad ran down the mountain, trembling. He rushed to Khadijah and cried, "Cover me, cover me." She comforted him, held him, and told him, "God would never disgrace you. You help the poor. You speak truth, you honor guests, and you stand for justice." Khadijah took him to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, a scholar of the earlier scriptures. After hearing his story, Waraka said, "This is the same spirit that came to Moses. You are the prophet of this nation." And thus, in that quiet cave, Islam began. For the next 23 years, revelation after revelation came, words of faith, mercy, and purpose. He called people to worship one God, Allah, and to abandon idols. He preached kindness, honesty, and equality. But the powerful elite of Mecca were threatened. Their wealth and pride were built on idols. They mocked him, slandered him, beat his followers. Yet the message spread, quietly, steadily, like dawn before sunrise. Then came heartbreak. His beloved Khadijah passed away. His uncle and protector, Abu Talib, died soon after. It was the prophet's darkest year, the year of sorrow. But just as despair closed in, came a miracle: the night journey, Isra and Miraj. He was taken from Mecca to Jerusalem, and from there, ascended through the heavens, witnessing the signs of his Lord and receiving the command of daily prayer. The journey renewed his strength. It was time to carry the message beyond Mecca. By 622, Mecca had become deadly for the believers. The Quraysh plotted to kill the prophet, to silence the message forever. But God had a plan. In a distant city called Yathrib, two tribes had heard of Muhammad's wisdom. They invited him to lead them, to bring peace to their divided land. One by one, Muslims began migrating there. And on a fateful night, when assassins surrounded his home, Muhammad escaped, leaving his cousin Ali in his bed. With his loyal companion Abu Bakr, he fled to a cave called Thor. Hiding there as enemies searched the desert. When the danger passed, they set out for Yathrib. When he arrived, the city welcomed him with open arms. The Hijra, the migration, marked a new beginning. Yathrib became Medina, the city of the Prophet. Here, Islam found its heart. The first mosque was built. The bonds of brotherhood were forged between migrants and locals, and the Constitution of Medina was created, the first charter guaranteeing freedom of faith and justice for all. But the Quraysh would not rest. They marched on Medina, and so began the first battles of Islam: Badr, Uhud, and the Trench. At Badr, outnumbered Muslims triumphed through faith. At Uhud, they learned the cost of disobedience. At the Trench, they defended their city against overwhelming odds, with patience and unity. Through each trial, Muhammad taught forgiveness over vengeance, mercy over anger, faith over fear. 6 years passed. In 628, the Prophet set out with his followers, not for war, but for peace. They came unarmed, seeking only to perform the pilgrimage. At a place called Hudaybiyah, the Quraysh stopped them. A treaty was signed, one that seemed unfair. Many Muslims were angry, but the Prophet accepted it, saying, "Patience brings victory." And victory came sooner than anyone. In just 2 years, Islam spread across Arabia. When the Quraysh broke the treaty, Muhammad marched toward Mecca, not with hate, but with forgiveness. 10,000 believers entered the city without bloodshed. The Prophet approached the Kaaba, the shrine once filled with idols, and declared, "Truth has come, and falsehood has perished." The idols were destroyed, the sanctuary cleansed. Then he turned to the people who had once tried to kill him and said, "Go, for you are free." It was the greatest act of mercy in history. Mecca, once the heart of idolatry, became the heart of Islam. The Kaaba was rededicated to one God, Allah, creator of all. For the first time, the tribes of Arabia were united, not by blood, not by tribe, but by faith. In the year 632, 10 years after the migration, Muhammad performed his farewell pilgrimage. On the plain of Arafat, beneath the blazing sun, over 100,000 followers gathered to hear his words. He stood before them and said, "All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab over an Arab, except by piety and good action." He reminded them to pray, to give charity, to be kind to women, to stay united. He asked, "Have I delivered the message?" The crowd shouted, "Yes." He raised his hand and said, "O Allah, bear witness." Not long after, the Prophet fell ill. On a Monday morning, he smiled as he saw his companions praying. Moments later, he closed his eyes and returned to his Lord. Abu Bakr stood and said, "If anyone worships Muhammad, know that Muhammad has passed. But if you worship Allah, Allah lives and never dies." The message carried by one man, through hardship and revelation, now moved through nations and centuries. Within 100 years, it would stretch from Spain to India, from deserts to mountains, shaping art, science, law, and philosophy. It all began in a cave, with a single word: read. This is the story of the origin of Islam, a story of faith, struggle, and divine purpose. From the sands of Arabia rose a message that would outlast empires, a message of mercy, of peace, of unity, the message of Islam.